Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be across this great world of ours. Today is July 14th, 2026, day 33 of my video challenge. And today I'm going to talk about a topic that's kind of a why not. I'm going to talk about UFOs. Yeah, UFOs today. And why I'm talking about it today, I can't tell you. It's just something that kind of came up and I thought, okay, why not? Um, so just to start with UFOs, and I'm not going to call them UAPs or any of the other things. It's fine if other people want to move on from the term UFO, but I'm going to stick with UFO because historically everybody knows what that means. We don't have to explain anything, and I'm just going to give you my position on it. Um, So, growing up my entire life, I've always been interested in space and science fiction. And the very first time I saw anything about UFOs, I was just riveted. And I think a lot of people are based on the just the mystery, which is a good thing. I think it's good for humans to be caught up in the mystery of our universe and what's going on. And I mean, that's most of the fun in life is trying to figure out a good mystery. And there's these things that we've seen. There's these sightings, and we just catch a glimpse of it, and we're not really sure. Well, in the UFOs sightings have been going on. There's historical documents from centuries ago that talk about UFO sightings. The one in Germany was, I don't know, from like the 1300s or the 1600s. I think it was like the 1300s. And they describe in great detail these UFO sightings, right? These objects flying in the sky. And this was prior to any flying, man-made flying anything. Um, oh, hang on. I gotta let my kitty cat out. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Okay, and so um, there have been sightings across the world. There's been recordings across the world talking about visitors from the sky, talking about things up in the air when there shouldn't be any. These aren't weather phenomena. These aren't mass hallucinations. It's not swamp gas. Um, you know, Sadly, all that stuff was come up in a time where you know we just gotten out of World War II. It was a very scary time, and people were very willing to trust the government, or at least follow their lead, because the government had just pulled us through World War II. And then, the sociopaths in the government immediately started scaring us with the idea of a nuclear war with Russia, right? And so people were, more likely to believe the government when they came on and said it's just swamp gas. But so when I was driving back from the San Francisco Bay Area to Kansas City, I stopped into Roswell, New Mexico, and I went into the UFO museum, and it was every bit as kitschy as you could think it was. But what really impressed me, what caught my attention and impressed me, were all the letters, signed affidavits. And a signed affidavit is when somebody writes something on paper and then signs it in front of a legal representative to swear that what they're saying is the truth, and they're willing to have it submitted into a court record. And when you submit something into court record, if it's false testimony, then that can get you in trouble. So a signed affidavit is it's a real thing. It's a legitimate thing, right? People don't just do that. And there were all these signed affidavit descriptions from letters from people who had lived in Roswell, New Mexico during the crash, during the famous crash. I think it was July 3rd. And and basically all of these letters in their own way said the events that I witnessed here during this time bear no resemblance to what was reported on the news to the general public. And it was a huge wall. It was probably 70 something letters from the people in that town years later who, did these signed affidavits and said, yeah, basically everything that was reported on the news to the rest of the nation bore no resemblance to what I actually witnessed. And that is huge. When you have like a 2-star general, when something crashes, and this wasn't just it wasn't just a sleepy little town. It was a sleepy little town next to a military base. And it wasn't just any military base out in the middle of nowhere. It was America's one and only atomic bomber base, right? So these are the guys that would, in an emergency, fly an atomic weapon and drop it somewhere. So they were a crack team, highly trained on all the latest technologies. They knew exactly what they were doing. And when they went out and recovered this material and came back, and the head of their PR team released a statement to the public saying, we have retrieved a crashed UFO, that, I guarantee, that is exactly what happened. It is exactly what happened. They were at the top of scientific understanding in that moment. And they were not going to mistake a weather balloon or anything else for a UFO. They knew exactly what they were looking at. And then the fact that the very next day, a 2-star general from Washington, D.C. flew out there immediately and made them retract that statement and make another statement that was even less believable, which is, oh, I'm sorry, we thought we had a UFO, but this was actually a top secret weather balloon. Look, if it was really a top secret weather balloon, first of all, they would just let them say that it was a UFO, right? They wouldn't go out and say, oh, no, it wasn't a UFO. It was this top secret thing that we were working on. Because it's supposed to be top secret. They would keep it top secret. They would allow the false story to go out. They wouldn't blow the cover of the top secret thing to, dissuade the American public from thinking that we have crashed UFO. And if anything, that would have been the preferable thing, because then it would have really screwed with the Russians' heads. Oh, wow, the Americans have captured a UFO, right? When it was really just our own top secret stuff that we were working on. It would have thrown, a really powerful false trail out there for everyone to follow. That's what they would have done. If it were really a top secret weather balloon thing that they would have let everybody think that it was a UFO. No, it was a UFO. It was a craft that was not designed or flown by human beings. And then, fast forward 70 years, and there's been so much evidence from astronauts, fighter pilots, air traffic controllers, both military and civilian, civilian airline pilots, all of these people, uh, officers in the Air Force who are stationed at nuclear missile silos. All of these people are expert trained observers. They know what they're looking at. And when they say that they saw something maneuver in a way that is impossible for any technology that we have on Earth, then I believe them. And there's enough evidence out there that it's no longer, even the government can't even really say that this doesn't exist anymore. Then they haven't. Now they're just denying that they know what it is, right? They're saying, yeah, it's something. It's not human. I mean, even that is a huge revelation, that it is a non-human intelligence that is behind these observations, behind these craft, right? The most interesting thing for me is now that actually quite a few military personnel and government personnel are coming out and saying, well, we don't know if it's somebody from across the galaxy. It could be something from a different dimension. And so and yeah, it could be. But wow, what a leap. What a leap to take from this isn't real, it's an optical illusion that you're seeing, some trick of light, to, yeah, it actually might be from a different dimension. Things are moving fast. So my position is that it's real. It's real. We don't know what, maybe there are people that know what it is. I want to say that one of the worst offenders of the scientific community of we know everything, and if this doesn't fit within our model of knowing, then we're just rejecting it as nonsense. Neil deGrasse Tyson. That guy has lost so much credibility in my eyes as a scientist, right? No scientist should ever come out and say, this is garbage because it doesn't fit our current model of, what we understand. Because every scientist should know that the more you understand about the universe, the more you realize how much you don't understand about the universe. And it's so anti-scientific to just say, well, if I don't understand it, then it can't be true. How about, wow, maybe there's just ways of moving around faster than light that we don't know, and maybe there's ways of tapping into energies far beyond our understanding to make that happen, to make wormholes happen, or to like shift into hyperspace like they did on Star Wars, or to create a warp bubble like in Star Trek, right? Yeah, it's so arrogant and condescending to come out and just say, well, we know for a fact that nothing can move faster than light. Well, you know what? If you go back to 500 BC or so, and there was a Greek philosopher named Democritus who postulated, and this is 500 BC, so 2,500 years ago, 2,500 years ago, this guy in Greece postulated that the universe was made up of very tiny particles moving through space, which is basically correct. Absolutely correct. And all the other, philosophers, and at that point, there was no distinction between philosopher and scientist. They were one and the same thing. Looked at him and said, well, how do you account for movement? And he's like, I don't know. And so, because he didn't have all the answers, everyone just scoffed at him, and we kind of let that go until Newtonian physics, where Newton came up with an answer for that. Well, here's how we account for movement, right? Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Whew, man, I just don't even want to listen to that guy anymore. And I'm not saying he should have jumped on the bandwagon. The appropriate thing for any scientist to say is, well, first of all, let me see the data. Oh, and like you have really good eyewitness, like jet fighter pilots saying that they witnessed this. Wow, that's outstanding. What could it be? How could they have done that? Let's do some creative thinking. Maybe there is a way to create kind of like a warp bubble that allows you to slip through space faster than you normally would, to lessen the amount, the coefficient of drag for the universe itself, right? I mean, people have thought up of, science fiction writers think up of these things long before they're ever created. But they, a lot of times, eventually get created because that's how the mind works. It creatively thinks of like, well, what could it be? And then somebody else looks at that and is inspired by it and figures it out, right? I honestly think that it is possible to move faster than light. I don't think that there's any time dilation when you do it, because time dilation is a fixture of moving through the fabric of space. But if you create a bubble, then you're not really moving through the fabric of space. You're creating a sort of cavity. It's like creating a big bubble underwater. You're not surrounded by water. You're surrounded by air. And in this case, you'd be surrounded by not the fabric of space, but an actual vacuum, right? A real vacuum, because space is not a vacuum. It's full of particles. And as far as like how much energy it would take, that's based on what we know. I remember when I was a kid growing up, I was reading about the very first laser. And the very first laser took a tremendous amount of energy, like kilowatts. But flash forward to now, and we've gotten so efficient at creating lasers, you can create a stronger laser than that one that they created back in the 50s or 60s or whatever, using two AAA batteries or two AA batteries, right? It's fucking ridiculous how little energy we need to create a laser that will burn through wood. Yeah. And so I always keep that in my mind when it comes to when someone says, oh, it would take an ungodly amount of energy. Well, maybe not, right? We can do it now. You got two AA batteries, Well, think about the little cat toy that you push the button, it creates a laser on the floor. That's not even a AAA battery. That's like, one of those little button batteries. It's insane how little energy, because we have learned how to make a laser so efficiently. You can use like a watch battery. It's crazy. It's insane. So yeah, UFOs are real. But do we need to spend all our time thinking about them? I mean, it's fun. It's fun. It's entertaining. But honestly, they're gonna appear when they decide to appear. If you have that kind of technology, yeah, maybe our government has a lot of stuff that they're hiding from us, and I think they do. But the real focus shouldn't be UFOs. The real focus should be, why the fuck are you hiding this stuff from us, right? And where's the transparency in government? Because ultimately the government is us. We the people. We're the government. Those other people are public servants, right? They are not the government. They are not. We are the government. We the people, and the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. That's the government. Everything else, they're just public servants doing our bidding. That's why we vote them in. But it's really easy to vote somebody in. We need to make it really easy to vote them out too. We need to be able to make it just as easy to kick them out. And that goes with Supreme Court justices. That we need to have term limits on the Supreme Court justices. Honestly, I feel like it needs to be the group, the entire group of federal district court justices vote one of their own or 9 of their own into those positions, and those positions are good for like, I don't know, 7 years, 9 years, something like that, right? And that group also have the ability to censure and remove justices based on bad behavior. So it would be that group of federal district court judges in America. And I say that because, A, they're the ones who have a really good idea of who's going to be good, who's going to be a good person to sit on that highest board. And they're also going to be really, they're going to be able to know who's misbehaving and why. So they're going to police their own, basically. But then also, like the Congress would have the ability to step in too, at a very high level if need be. But basically, I think it should be run by the Justice Department, the legal, like that should be them doing that, right? And I say that, and I have confidence in that because what I've seen is even justices that were put in there by some pretty shady characters in the past are behaving like professionals. They are not politicians. They take their jobs very seriously. They take their professions very seriously. And really only Eileen Cannon's the one, in that federal district court setting that is the real exception, and she's an embarrassment to the rest of them. And then there are, like the ones who are in the Supreme Court right now who are an embarrassment. And there are 2 that should be moved immediately because of their not reporting gifts. And this isn't like 1 or 2 gifts. It's like over decades they did this. Anyway, getting back to UFOs. But this is all part of it. Like the biggest thing about the UFOs, yeah, they're there, and it's a huge, amazing mystery. But the biggest thing about UFOs is the government cover-up, right? Nixon didn't go down for wiretapping, for trying to break into his opponent's office, campaign office. He went down because he covered it up. And he got caught. That's what it was. It was the cover-up. That's what really took him down. And that's the big news story with UFOs, is the cover-up. And I don't care what reason they give. That's not your job. So, all right, well, this went way longer than I thought it would, but that's where I'm going to leave it for now. And just remember, you are more loved than you know and far more valuable than you can imagine. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.